Hey there, friends, and welcome to your Lucid Living Show, where you join and participate with us in our essential conversations with ordinary people achieving the extraordinary. The Lucid Living Show is brought to you and sponsored by the mindfulnessadvantage.com, and our wingman and producer is Andy Brine of hangouttribes.com. Thank you for staying with us for the next hour. Our featured guest today is Andy Lyons, founder and chief possibility officer of Possibility Partners. Today, we're inviting you to join us in our exploration of power with rather than power over. It's your authentic power of partnership. Andy will be joining the program in just a moment after our opening segment, First Words. Today, we are all steeped in a culture of massive distraction, immersed in media images of crisis, conflict, and contentiousness. And in the midst of it all, we do our best to live and breathe in faith that somehow we can and must imagine and create a better now, a better world for ourselves and for our children. In order for any of us to succeed, we must embrace and pursue an inner path to sustainable change before we can see and effect positive changes in our outer world. What is required for each of us to thrive is to resurrect our most essential conversation, relationship, and partnership with ourselves, with our hearts, and with our new minds awakened to the possibility and probability of what can be achieved. We can only achieve our new exploration and expression of partnership with new high agreements, commitments, and new collaborative relationships. Today's conversation is an invitation for all to seek out support, mentors, and friends of like mind to join in your exploration. Again, our featured guest today is Andy Lyons, founder and chief possibility officer of Possibility Partners. Andy, thank you so much for joining us on our program today.
Thank you, George, for having me here. It's a pleasure to chat with you and have a deeper conversation about something that's so important, which is true partnership with your beloved self, a beloved partner, and the beloved world.
Amen. Amen. So let's get this party started. I set the tone with the invitation that any change that we wish to see in the world has to start inside of us, in our partnership with ourselves. And it's a real invitation to resurrect our conversations and our relationships with ourselves because, quite simply, we are so distracted. And we're ruled by the patterns of our past, and especially the patterns we're steeped in around partnership and gender roles. So you've got a wonderful story. You and your beloved husband started out in a program that emphasized and catalyzed growth. So let's start from there with your story of how your partnership survived many challenges and losses and has become stronger and stronger and more deeply intimate throughout the years.
Thank you so much for that introduction and for bringing up this wonderful topic. And before I met my husband, it was important to me. I knew I needed to do some internal work in order to bring in the caliber of individual that I wanted to share my life with. So I always like to start with that, George, just doing some of the inner work that I knew was preventing me from being open enough to a wonderful, loving relationship, and also setting the intention. It was never, oh, he must have green eyes and dark lashes and things like that. It was a sense of humor, some good chemistry, capability, someone who was motivated to get up every day and serve the world, didn't care how, wasn't into what one would do for a living. And then part of that wanting to improve, self-actualize, find out what were beliefs versus truths going on in my head and in my heart. I enrolled in a program back in the 80s called LifeSpring. And this is where they really helped you pull back the layers and get in touch with who you really are, your core essence. And I went through the whole program with my husband's best friend, who he had enrolled. My husband had done the program in San Francisco. I was doing it in New York. And it was through his friend that I met Chet. And we immediately felt a bond, a connection. It was like lightning fast. And what happened for us was that because we had both been through this program relatively recently, we hadn't had a chance to put the barriers of entry up yet, which we all do for understandable reasons, to protect ourselves. And so we started off with full transparency, George, and it was wonderful. It was like a ground zero opportunity to be fully who we are and were at the time. And we started off life together, and I'll never forget, we moved in. I mean, we were engaged immediately, but we moved in together first, and all of a sudden my husband came down deathly ill. And I knew that he had had a pint of blood transfusion in San Francisco in 1982. And all the doctors thought for sure he was HIV and with AIDS. It was so frightening. I had just met him. We were only maybe 9 months into the relationship, not even a year. And we had this health crisis right away. But it turned out to be Legionnaire's disease and had a wonderful happy ending. So we immediately got challenged with that. We were both getting our MBAs back to back. And we had wonderful aspirations. We continued to always, be connected. And then when the time was right, we wanted to have children. And we thought you went and had children just like everybody else did. And it became a process where our first pregnancy resulted in a very early live delivery at 5 months. And she did not make it, Marcy. And so we said, okay, we got through that. And then for another reason, we got pregnant again. And baby Jack was coming. And 7 months into that pregnancy, baby Jack passed inside me. And so that was very devastating.
Bless your heart.
And as you can imagine, in a relationship with that kind of, things going on, it's so traumatic. And then we got pregnant again, and that didn't work out either. And at 13 weeks, I had to have a D&C. And I bring up those specific facts because it was how we handled the grief together, how we continued to move forward together. His mom died suddenly and all of that. And it was still, we were very focused on what we wanted to create together as a couple and keeping the open communication and compassionate and loving heart going forward. And then we called our first successful outcome Hunter, came into the world. What a treat. And shortly thereafter, a couple of years later, Matthew arrived. And anybody who's had kids can know, really, there's nothing more trying on a relationship than children, especially if one of the parents has come from a high-risk environment, as my husband was growing up. You can become hyper-vigilant in your protection of the children. But, we continued to communicate through that. But then we went and, like that wasn't enough, right? We had to go and together start a .com business, which was heavily backed by venture capital. And we were moved to California for that, and we had the most amazing 2-year run. We were doing things like YouTube and Facebook because our market was the college market. It was a wild ride. We were totally into it all the way in, and then, of course, in the summer of 2000, the whole .com industry crashed, and our business crashed, and our finances crashed. And we somehow we dove into a place of real negativity toward each other and had a really tough time. And we could have gotten divorced then, George. I mean, as if the other things weren't hard enough. We could have gotten divorced then because we were not nice to each other. We had lost our compassion for each other. And I said, in order to save this relationship, because when we started, divorce was never on the table. We had both been married before when we were very young. We knew what that was like. We didn't want to go through that again. And so we didn't want it to happen this time. And instead of going to a wonderful therapist for 45 minutes several times a week, I said to the person that we chose to counsel us, would you please move in with us for 5 days? Because I want boot camp rebooting of our marriage. And a lot of times what happens is you start your relationship off visioning it a certain way, and when big trauma happens to it, you need to stop and revision your relationship. So what you had, for the first 10 years may not suit where you need to go for the rest of your life, and that's what we did. And I will say to any of the couples out there, it was a crazy time having this person come into our home, and really for the first 2 days we were in timeout a lot, just like a kid would be, because we couldn't say a civil word to each other. But yeah.
Let me jump in for a second, just because this is so important. What you've shared is a model where your origins were from a place where you were both committed to a process of greater learning and mindful awareness and
Right.
personal evolution, which again, I said in the opening, is the foundation for the strength of our relationships. What's really important, which I desire to repeat to everyone, is what Ande said, which is divorce was not on the table. All right. If you desire for your intimate relationships and your partnerships not only to succeed and survive, but to thrive, you've got to play all in. You've got to have that all in commitment and never be checking the exits. So I appreciate the model you and Chet have embodied and that you're sharing today, because having a therapist move in, talk about no exits. You're in the process of resurrecting your relationship and remembering who you are and who your partner is and why you love them. And that takes courage and it takes commitment. So
Right, and we wrote a new contract.
yeah.
And it was very important that I, Ande Lyons of Sound Mind and Body, really, we put down into paper how we were going to move forward. And because it was such a boot camp session with an amazing couples counselor, we were given tools that we use to this day. And let me tell you, we've had a lot worse happen since then. So, and we skated, right through it, no problem, because we had these tools, because we turned our resurrection of our relationship and marriage into a re-envisioning commitment and into an intensive learning process where we could shatter old beliefs or old woundedness and old stories and create sacred space. We had a sacred altar that we would go to every day to express our gratitude for each other, for our life together. And she really helped us bring the magic back and the intention back to our love and our relationship. And we use that recommitment to this day. And folks, my husband is a rocks are hard, water's wet kind of a guy. I say Virgo with a Capricorn rising. He's really into scientific reality, but he also believes in energy, and he's a good man, and he wants his darling happy, and so he's always happy to light the candle, light the white sage, do the intentions, have the affirmations. He's a wonderful co-partner. And I think that's what we have to do too. We have to understand that we may have different modalities in how we get together and have this third sort of energy space that is the couple, the partnership. And we have to honor what each other brings to that.
Indeed, those are key. And unfortunately, we did not inherit, most of us, those keys or those models or that information on how to be in a sustained and sustainable, loving relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we're steeped in a culture that's all about division and polarity. I mean, we see it in the media, and our roles that have been foisted upon us as men and women are based in difference. Yeah. And when we judge or play from a perception of difference, we're inheriting the lineage and the history of conflict and quite literally war. Mm-hmm. So in my studies of the yoga of Tantra, the Shivaic Tantrism, which again, as we talked, is the it has nothing to do with the Western culture, pop culture, hypersexualized Tantra. This is the practice of consciousness and being and relationship. What works, and this is the new model that's emerging, is that we create agreement, high agreement, to create sanctuary for ourselves and each other, and be committed to see your beloved, your partner, unfiltered, and allow you yourself to be seen, vulnerable, raw, and unvarnished. Now that takes trust. We have to learn that, and we have to build that. So how did that happen in your relationship with your beloved Chet?
Well, yeah, I was very blessed in the fact that my husband is a very nurturing person and loves me unconditionally. And I grew up with conditional love. Yeah, you know what that feels like. It doesn't feel good. And so I've always felt safe with him and he with me. And I think that right away is the most important thing. Another thing you have to remember too is your partner's not there to meet your needs. You can ask them to help you meet your needs, absolutely. But to sit there and especially women, because we're so great at mind reading, we expect our men to be great at mind reading, and they're not. They don't even value that trait. We have to be able to use our words, use our impeccable words in saying what we need from our darlings. And really, a healthy man wants to give you what you need. He's there to provide and protect. That's the core DNA in a healthy man. And women, I always say, encourage them to please ask for what you want. The other thing too is the love needs nurturing. Just like you watch your child who is a certain personality, perhaps at 2, and then they evolve into their 10-year-old personality, and then, oh boy, the teenage years personality. We are evolving. And your point, George, about always staying open and connected, the raw, revealed part of yourselves, it's key. And all the distractions that we have, the great TV shows and Netflix and our handheld text messages where we just hate to be out of touch, they provide a filter from our being able to stay in touch with our beloved. And so it's critical and key to be able to put time aside for your relationship. It is the most important thing in your life. And by creating times where you can partner, whether just over a glass of wine and talking, reading together, or looking at each other, breathing together, and looking in each other's eyes, it's the only way for you to stay in touch with the evolving nature of your beloved as well as your beloved self. I found that for us was very important, and we make sure we go on hikes together, have our time with a candle lighting, and put our relationship first above all else.
Mm-hmm. That's so important. And the idea here is the concepts and the invitations are beyond the confines and the garden of marriage. It's relationship in general. So there are a lot of people out there who are not married, but they're in a cohabitation relationship, or they've been dating and they're together for years, or these all still apply to us as individuals, again, in our inner relationship with our beloved. We're going to jump to comments here. Now we've got some issues with Comment Tracker today, so I'm simply going to read a couple of these already stellar comments. This one is from Rain Dowell. I'm mentally adjusting to what I'm hearing about marital partnerships and incorporating it to apply to my relationship with myself. Currently, I'm single, and I'm finding the words just as powerful. Thank you, Andy Lyons and George Green, and thank you, Rain, for being such a wonderful part of our conversation. We have another one from Deborah Oakland. It says, George Green, I can affirm that Andy Lyons and Chet rock a relationship, a loving relationship, no matter if we are married or single. The same principles of love, respect, integrity, and being conscious apply to our relationship with others and ourselves. So it's wonderful to see that we're creating resonance and attracting people into the conversation. And just a reminder, friends, you are an important part of our conversation. It's just not a couple of talking heads. We're a couple of beloveds, Andy and I, and we are bringing you into the garden of our hearts, and our idea, our new expression of partnership. And so we thank you for your comments, and we invite you to be engaged now and after the show. Andy, one of the things that I loved about our conversations in preparing for the show, and this really picks up right where you left off, is that the dating and the courtship did not end when you got married. Okay, and that's after the new shiny feel and the wonderful new intimacy that happens. All too often people fall into this familiar role of self and a familiar but narrow sense and perception of their partner. Oh my God, keep dating, keep courting each other. Throw some fire, some gas on that fire. So share a little bit about your experience, because I can see the glow coming up right now on you, Andy.
Well, it's absolutely key, and I feel, again, very blessed that my husband still dates me and courts me and
Yes.
flirts with me. We both work from home. And I was telling my friend the other day, who was here for a client session with me, because Chet will come in and he'll want to have a moment. Honey, hi, because he wants to connect, and that's important to our men. But sometimes I'm just talk to the hand. But you have to work around that, and we have to really step back and say, I'm sorry, that's not, I really want to hear from you and share with you as well. And the dating is key. I mean, he still chases me around the house. I'm not done with you yet. And I'm thinking, gosh, almost 30 years, really? But it's a perception. It's really, you can train your brain. You can bring chemistry back. The first 18 months, your brain is putting out chemicals that make you hot and excited to be with each other. But those will go away. But
Oxytocin.
yeah, but you can rekindle them, and it's how you choose to perceive your darling and your beloved, and you can have the memories of why does he take, leave the toilet seat up or the toothpaste cap off the toothpaste, or you can do what my good friend Molly Apple of the Soulmate Experience does, is she looks at that and goes, oh, what a great reminder of my beloved Joe. Okay, so you can see how you can reframe everything. But as you all know, I had my business bringbackdesire.com. It's still up and thriving and serving people around the world because I know that for us gals, we see so much, we take care of so much, and we are not stimulated by what we see. We are stimulated and aroused by how we feel. And so the way for a man to help us move, into arousal is to really honor us and be romantic and maybe do household chores and relieve the efforts there. But I also feel that for women, we also need to continue exploring our sexuality, because as the hormones leave the bodies, both for men and women, that can shut down, and you don't want to be a roommate your whole relationship. You really want a lover relationship. It's the best part of being human, is being able to share that deep intimacy with someone that you cannot share with anyone else. So the courting, the dating, and this book behind me here, The 5 Languages of Love, a key read for everybody, because we often use the language of love that we want when we talk to our beloved, and they often have a completely different language of love. So mine is to be appreciated, and my husband's is an act of service. And so bringing him coffee or some toast or little acts of kindness, oh my gosh, that's a full expression of love for him. I don't need that, but I know when he's doing that for me, it's his expression of love. So really understand what language you're speaking and take time to know that. And those languages of love transfer into your work relationships, your friendship relationships, your children's relationships. All of these are transferable. But the dating and the courting is key. You've got a lifetime together, and the challenges of life can really beat a couple down. And it's so important that we use our tools, whether gals, it's reading erotic romance or tuning into your body in a tantric type of way. Guys, whatever it is that you need to reframe your darling's ever-changing body and mood swings and things depending on the hormones. Do what it takes, because this person is very special. And with the divorce rate of first marriages being 60%, second marriages being even higher, and third marriages being in the low 90% for divorce, you have a great chance with the one you have of turning your relationship into a spectacular relationship.
Indeed, indeed. It's so important. Thank you so much for being open and vulnerable and unvarnished in sharing your relationship, your victories and the loss and tragedies. It's a part of life, certainly.
It is.
But a really important piece here, again, is our brains are wired for familiarity. And if we allow ourselves to settle into a familiar relationship and role, perception of our partner, then we're missing out on the actual feast of our partnership, of the person, our beloved, we are present to. It takes a commitment to live and breathe in the moment. It takes a commitment of mindfulness to be in an ongoing exploration of who your beloved is, because we evolve. One of the challenges in being in a relationship is because it's so automatic, really, neurologically, for us to fall into a mode of familiarity, that it's an invitation for us to be living in an illusion of sameness, and to be identified by a single definition rather than the evolving, mindful, curious, and aware creature that we can be, and we can be in a relationship. I had an inner inquiry years ago where I thought about, and this was a tenet in Shaivic Tantrism, where these people, these practitioners, they cultivate a consciousness, a being, and an experience with the external world where their desire and their fulfillment are one and the same. They are co-resident. All right, so that's not thinking of what I need to complete me. That's being in your inner relationship with your beloved and knowing that you are essentially a complete being. When you meet your external partner, your beloved, in that space, or you explore that space together, then that's what I call the feast. That's when our relationship opens and blooms. It requires, again, sanctuary. It requires surrender in a way that isn't giving power away or power to. It is trusting your sanctuary and your high agreement with your beloved that you can be raw and unvarnished and vulnerable and seen. And so one of the pictures that I shared in our event, if you'll indulge me, I'm going to read this piece, and it was born out of my own inner inquiry, my vision of my relationship with my beloved, and it's called Surrender. Memories of melding beyond boundary of self. I desire to be drawn into you, to live behind your eyes and rest in the quiet shadows of your heart. Take shelter and sanctuary here with me. I am for you. My heart and arms are yours. Now, it takes pure courage to be in a commitment to constantly be dropping off the baggage of our past so that we can be in the moment with ourselves and with our beloved. And that is our invitation today, is not only join us in our conversation, but join in yourself and with your heart in a new conversation, a new inquiry about what it would look like and feel like to be in an intimate, deep, and liberated relationship, first with yourself and then with your divine partner. So we are getting to the third segment, and so briefly, what I want to do, I desire and require, is for us to take this yummy, juicy invitation and out picture it a little further into how we can upgrade our relationships in community and in business. And you're a perfect person to speak to that, Andy, because you are the Chief Possibility Officer of Possibility Partners.
Well, you know, being there's I want to talk about vulnerability. It's one thing to be vulnerable in a safe space like we have here and with our beloved, but we also have to be careful who we share that level of vulnerability with. And so in the work relationships that we have, you know, we build our bridges of trust through engagement and laughter and conversation. And as we do that, we move into places where we do feel safe. We find our like-minded folks where we have that community. But I don't want anybody to think that they're not going to have a meaningful relationship with someone if they're not transparent or completely vulnerable. You can still share your love and light from a distance. You can still honor with deep compassion and empathy any human that's walking the journey. And so when I talk about businesses and relationships, whether it's relationships with your peers, with your coaches, with your providers, service providers, or your customers, it's always being sure to come from the four agreements space that Don Miguel Ruiz talks about, which is using your impeccable words, don't make assumptions, don't take things personally, and always do your best. You know, when you come to your business, to your relationships, your online presence like we have here, and you speak of what you love, what you intend, and you come from a place of collaboration, folks who are not of that energy level, and you see people who do a lot of bashing and focusing on what they hate here on social media. You just can't get caught up in that, right, George? You need to stay mindful of your own words, your own presence, your own energy, and the others will fall to the side that are not of that energy. And it's important to use that in your business and always honoring the journey with a client, potential client, etc.
Amen. Yeah, the invitation here is to be engaged, but be mindfully engaged and be engaged with people who are on the same playground as you, who are curious, and their commitment is to explore a new expression of partnership, of being, of self, and of relationships. So,
And
Andy, I'm sorry, go ahead.
oh, well, I can speak to that, especially when I was fully engaged with BringBackDesire.com and building that brand up. I mean, there was a lot of naughty talk, but it was always framed and tasteful and playful, and with
Yes.
the coming from the right place of love and honoring. And so I honestly, I mean, I didn't even get people who would use swear words. Seriously, the energy was so there around that business model and the way the brand worked in the world and online that anybody, you know, who could have come in and seen it more as pornography or something, they just never did. I totally blessed, but also it was a mindful intention.
Correct. Your intention was to engage with and attract the people who desire and require the information that you have, that you embody, and that you share. And that really has everything to do with mindfulness. If you're mindful and really centered on what your outcome is, and you're in your outcome, not just imagining and fantasizing but when and now. So that's very important.
I love
And
what you just said there, George. In your outcome.
yeah,
That's why intentions are so powerful.
yeah, that's part of the Mindfulness Advantage training, and it's part of my training I received in conscious language. It's how we map our future and literally fold time and space. Whatever your dream and vision is, folks, You have to be in your outcome. You have to be so committed. And this is the same for relationships. We have to feed our relationships. We have to feed our heart, our dreams, and our visions. And we have to make that a practice. It has to be a habit. You
Mhm.
can't just do it when you feel like it. In fact, it's most generative and important when you mindfully sit with your shadow and your doubt to remember the arc, your trajectory you're on, what you're mapping, and be in your outcome. So before we move into our final segment, your moments in mindfulness, Andy, I want to invite you just to inspire our friends, our guests, and those who catch us on the replay, inspire them into an inner inquiry and action, actually. So
Mm.
pour some gas on that fire.
Well, of course, those of you who know me, I do this Anti-Licious Minute every week, and one of my favorites is, of course, perfection is the adversary of creativity and progress. And if you're looking for the perfect relationship, if you're looking for the perfect company, the perfect job, the perfect business model, it's going to prevent you from really moving forward because it is the journey. It's what you learn from experimenting, is what I like to call it, from your adventure in life. That's where you have the contrasts that provide you with wonderful information of what you don't want to do and what you do want to do or have in your life. So we love when things fall apart because we learn, we go deeper, we go, wow, I wonder why that's happening. But also, any kind of love, birthing is labor. You have to have the labor part. And so be okay with the fact that there's going to be times where it's hard and you're not comfortable and it's all new and you're afraid and you don't want to disappoint, not yourself or others. You don't want to self-sabotage. And find those in your life who happily and willingly share with you or someone that you can hire and use them to help you evolve into who you are meant to be. And that's right now who you're meant to be, 1 week, 1 year, 10, 20 years out. It's always an evolving process. And being uncomfortable can be hard. And I'm never talking about abusive relationships. When we talk about uncomfortable, it's because we're learning how to be more open and be more fully expressed. If you're in an abusive relationship, please, you are absolutely supposed to move on, and you now know that that's not what you wanted.
Mhm.
But I always, as George says, invite you to continue the exploration, listen to the stories, listen to the CDs, the MP3s, read the books, continue to really have the courage to pull back your layers because the world needs you, it wants you, and you are a unique, precious treasure. And don't ever forget that.
Yay. Wow. All right. I'm going back and listening to that invitation again and again today. That is wonderful advice, a wonderful invitation. And Andy, thank you so much for being a part of our conversation and inviting our friends to join us in that conversation. Remember, folks, our next and final segment is Your Moments in Mindfulness, which is my call to introspection and action and fulfillment. But first, I want to thank Andy Lyons for her Andy-licious advice and her devices, and her presence here today. I've also want to really say thanks and give a shout out to our producer for this series, Andy Brine of HangoutTribes.com. Andy, you're the glue for this show, and you're the conductor that gets the train from off the tracks back on and rolling. So I appreciate it, Andy. Jump in for a second and just say hello and any final words you'd like to share before we go to your moments in mindfulness.
Okay, thanks very much for allowing me to contribute today. I have to say it's been an absolutely very indulgent conversation. It's been a pleasure just to sit in and watch and just be in this amazing conversation because there's so much information to take away and really feel at the same time because each and every word for me brings a feeling, which is, I think, is really, really important. So thanks very much.
Okay, thank you, Andy. And Andy Lyons, I can say we can put a check mark next to mission accomplished when we're curling the producer's toes and the audience. So thank you for staying with us for the program, and now it's time for your moments in mindfulness. We all desire and require a new and sustainable way forward. Yet it's all too clear that we are indeed steeped and immersed in a polarized culture of massive distraction, multitasking, competition, and division. The primary and outward reflections of our own internal states of misalignment, argument, and conflict are our struggle for control and dominance within our relationships, both business and intimate, and include our perceptions and distortions around gender polarity. Our old stories, old roles, our outdated perceptions around role and gender, what some have termed the battle of the sexes, are also unfortunately based, no matter how subtly, on difference, dominance, and adversarialism. John Gray's book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are from Venus, offers a more aware and healthy way of understanding and relating based on our differences, but still there's the ultimate reality that we are here together now on this planet Earth. We were not born on separate planets, and in God's grand design, we were and are meant to fulfill our intended role as partners, not opponents. Understanding our differences is more than valuable in regards to how we might relate to each other. In fact, awareness and understanding of our unique natures as women and men is vital. And John Gray's work and book has been quite successful in promoting that understanding. The core problem in primarily using difference as a basis of understanding and interactions is quite simply that our history as a species is filled with countless examples of persecution, exclusion, relocation, genocide, torture, enslavement, and more, all based on difference. Regardless of our good intentions, of our spiritual maturity, relating based on difference is intrinsically connected to and a part of the destructive and controlling cultural construct of the dominator model. Together, perhaps we can agree, if only for a moment, to step out of the limits, roles, and confinements imposed upon us all from birth, and to embrace our intended role for us as divine partners. Spirit has no gender. The heart does not really care what planet you think you're from. Your soul, your essence, and your true self, they do not speak Venusian or Martian. The one true language of our hearts, regardless of whether we are men or women, is the universal language of God's infinite love and wisdom. It is this, our original and sacred language of the heart, that we seek to uncover and rediscover through our conscious dialogue with ourselves and with each other, and through our commitment to being truly mindfully present to each other and to our heart, our beloved's loving direction. Sustainable change and personal evolution and partnership all begin with you, in you, and through you. What you wish to see in your outer world must be seen and cultivated in and through your inner world by you first. Today, together with you, we have initiated and begun an important conversation in and around our new exploration and expression of authentic partnership. Join us in our ongoing, essential, and ever-evolving conversation. My guest, Andy Lyons, and I welcome your questions and comments, either here in our comment stream or directly. And I really want to echo what Andy said and what I said at the outset. Seek out people of like mind. Be curious, be committed, be in your faith and fire. Find a counselor, find a coach, find a mentor, find a source of information and inspiration that can help you forge your way forward. Imagine and create a new life, a new world, and a new relationship with yourself, with your beloved partner, and with your world. Join us next Thursday when we bring Deborah Oakland into our evolving conversation and we explore calling up our courage. I'm your host, George E. Green, and this is the Lucid Living Show. Thanks for joining us.